Go.
Okay.
Hello.
Hello. Welcome everyone to a special across the country live stream with CSE East and West. My name's Tyler, your intrepid producer and artist. Over here is Tim, our IT specialist, sometimes engineer, and Andrew is over in the West.
The man who wears all the hats.
Andrew wears all the hats.
See?
In the West Coast office, so we're trying something slightly different today. So expect a little bit of hilarity and lag to ensue.
We promise there will be technical difficulties.
Right. So
Yeah, we kind of min-maxed our skill set to, maximize game development and minimize video production.
exactly. So we purchased this special stand on which to put the computer earlier today. I hope you like it.
And let us know if you have trouble hearing Andrew, and we probably can't do anything about it.
Yeah. Let's do a quick audio check here. Andrew, go ahead and sing something.
Doodle-doo, doodle-doo-doo. No.
How's the audio?
Such a premium stand. Virtual Andrew. He's a little quiet, but
Yeah.
it's all good. They turned Andrew into a cyborg.
Okay.
He was that way when we found him.
So what we're gonna do is we're gonna get rolling into the top 10ish for the week here.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I'm preempting the top 10 for the week, though.
Okay.
I'm putting in a number 0 here ahead of everything else, which is we have hit the point where, obviously we've been talking about working towards, sieges and stuff and, doing regular playtests. This is the week where we hit the point where that playtest is the most fun part of my day. Period. Like that is such a huge thing. It's not let's go find the problems. It's all right, let's go kill each other now.
Yeah.
And that's huge.
Yay, killing.
Yay, killing.
So, there is smack talking. There are, we're in the office with our headsets or yelling at each other. It's, we do a half hour a day. We'll be doing it right after this. And, yeah, it's hit the fun. I mean, we argue instead of, oh, well, that's broken, we have to fix it. If that's broken, we have to fix it. It's, well, that's OP. And, that, that is so far ahead of everything else that in the aggregate, all of these little things, they're things we do, but that one big thing is like, yes.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I mean, we have these really hard work days, and we're all heads down, and then everybody kind of comes up for air, and we go in and kill each other, and we're like, immediately everybody's having a lot of fun killing each other. I mean, I can't iterate that more. And the cool thing is like once we're done with it, everybody's like, okay, I'm gonna go in and fix that. I can do that. I can do this, and everybody just starts getting back to work on little changes that'll actually make things more fun that we've run into while testing.
Yeah. So, and in terms of laying IT people in, that's gonna be super soon. I don't think Mark wants me to commit to which build is our target build for that, but I know which build is our target build for that.
Yeah, so we had talked about this last week. We were shooting for this week. We're not quite there yet, but we're making a lot of really good progress, per what Andrew just said.
It's got to get to the point where, all right, these are the 10 super obvious things that if we let people play it, they're all just going to say, yeah, that thing's broken. And it's like, well, yeah, we know that thing's broken. So getting to a point of, getting that list down to the point of, all right, so, these things aren't in your way. Are they, what's really going on?
And to that effect, like, more and more of this is becoming like, how do we make the general experience of participating in these tests easier and more fluid so that you guys can just jump in and start killing people and having fun. So I don't know if it's on the list, but like this morning and last night, Ben was working on just putting together like all the starter skills so you could just take a completely new character, hop in, and have a good set of skills. And that was a thing. It's not broken, it's not balance related, it's not tech related, it's a quality of life feature we think that will make your experience more intuitive, more enjoyable, and more immediate. And so there's stuff like that's nothing's broken. Let me be clear, there is stuff that's broken, but there's also stuff that's just let's make this feel good from the get-go so that you guys can have the most amount of fun and give us the best amount of feedback.
Yeah, like the stuff that's broken is getting farther to the leaves of the tree. Like this morning I fixed a bug where what happens if the packet that says I'm firing my arrow makes it to the server before the packet that says I'm drawing my bow for whatever network reasons. You know, that's the thing that happens, and stupid stuff would happen if it did, and now we handle that sanely. So
yeah, last week it was, you know, if we all murder Tyler too hard, the server crashes. This week it's like that knockback's a little bit too strong.
Yeah, and you know,
and by a little bit too strong, I mean like suborbital ion Lucherpan.
Yeah.
Strong. Like, well, who's in the next county? Tyler's in the next
Yeah,
county.
yeah.
I may not have noticed that he's in the next county because he's Tyler. But...
Yeah, I had created 5 little sections with water, and if anybody who's been in there knows, like, you go below the water, you die, and it was kind of a way just to make it so that, like, this is where a scenario takes place. The problem was we were getting punted out, like, 2 scenarios.
You literally land in the next time zone.
Yeah.
Right the way Donnie wants it.
Yeah. So that was interesting.
You know what I'm saying? Like, got a 300-yard drive.
Yeah, so in this case, it was more of like, okay, the first time that's hilarious. The 5th time that's not fun. You can't get back to the game. Things like that have to get out of the way.
It never stopped being fun to do.
Yeah, it never stopped being fun. There was just more legwork.
If it's not
involved.
you, I was stuck out in Timbuktu.
As long as you're still driving a siege engine, you're fine.
Right. Oh, yeah, you'd be stuck to it
But
still.
as I've said from the beginning, good multiplayer is what's fun to lose.
I don't know.
You know, everyone loves winning, especially when you're winning against Tyler. But can we make it fun for Tyler when he is losing?
Yeah.
You know, the balance is a big part of that. You know, he has to feel like he has a chance, even though he doesn't.
Yeah, we speaking of not having a chance, we've started putting in part of one of the top 10s is just on-player effects. So you hear like crackling fire, and you see fire in your character when you've been lit on fire. And as we start adding those things in, running through the little siege area we've built and getting peppered, you just get lit up like a Christmas tree.
Yeah, we definitely need some cover. Like,
Yeah.
Oh god, I'm out in the open.
Oh,
It
God.
hurts.
Yeah, and if we put NPCs in there for testing, you go around the corner and all of a sudden there's like 15 guys who pepper you.
It's just a murder choo-choo.
Yeah, but again, like the fact that that's where we are, that's awesome.
Yeah. So
do we want to do the real top 10?
Yeah.
we'll get, we just zero indexed our top 10. It's fine.
So I have to point out we did exactly like we're just talking about how much fun we are having in the play testing, even though we're still fixing bugs and everything. But that obviously came out right at the start of this, which is really nice.
Yeah, and you know all of the stuff like air walls is not yet back in the game. So let's put that in, and oh my god.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were actually having discussions about air wall yesterday, so it should be in the not long list.
Okay.
All right.
Let's do.
People, you'll join us next week, I hope.
Okay. Do you want to shoot off Andrew? Do the first one, since you did 0 and you're starting to talk about sieges and everything.
Okay. So simultaneous sieges. Caleb's been sort of doing a framework for deathmatch scenarios and things that, you know, all right, so this one's going to run over here and this one's going to run over here so that, you know, you can be in whichever scenario, you know, as it's playing out. That's kind of the plumbing thing of just, okay, well, I want to join one of these controlled siege events, and, well, where do I go? What do I do? What if this one is completely full? So that's, you know, that's what that is.
And also, one of the things we've talked about, sort of why we're doing this, to A, get you guys in, playing, having fun, experiencing the game, but also for us to stage and categorize tests. And so, like, one of the things you may or may not get to see, but we've seen, has been, like, there's a scenario that just puts you inside of a keep, and that keep is a pre-made model that Tyler or Dion made, or we got off
Ages
of a store
ago.
somewhere, or whatever.
I made it.
Okay, good. that's not tied into our building system. And then there's
that looks like we paid at least $10 for that on the Unity store.
Thank you.
And
Nice,
you
though.
fucks. And there's another one that's like a plot scenario, and it's the same thing except without the keep, and there's a plot, and the plot's got an actual building on it. And so, we were like, hey, let's go into a plot scenario. Buildings were performing poorly. There was a bug related to buildings, so we could turn that scenario off and bring up another scenario with the keep, so that we could test siege and gameplay and stuff like that. And that's the sort of thing that we're working towards with these scenarios and these dragon circles is ways that we can do a whole bunch of different tests around a specific feature or a specific set of features, and all of that's coming together, and we can do them running in parallel and all that. So
Okay.
Number 2.
The one real quick thing is right now we're sort of using parties as a organizational mechanic for the scenarios, which means we can't have more than 8v8v8 in a scenario right this second. We're working on getting battle groups working for that, which will let us go up to
A crap ton of people. I can't remember
a crap
off the top
ton.
of my head.
TM.
But
A
it's per team.
What'd you say?
Infinite.
He said infinite teams.
So once we get the battle groups tech built, integrated into the scenarios, then we'll have basically those large battles, but in this scenario.
So we'll talk more about battle groups. My words aren't doing so good today. Battle groups in a little bit. But part of this was we've been doing work so that in the absence of being able to have much larger teams in scenarios, we can have more simultaneous scenarios going on. And so there's been tech work and a little bit of level design around facilitating.
A little bit of level design.
And so that's part of what this is about, is making it so that we can get more people onto a server doing scenarios all at the same time, in lieu of the proper solution, which is to use battle groups, which gets us huge scenarios. Huge. We have the biggest scenarios.
Scenarios that go all the way to China.
All right, so actually read number 2, Tim.
Actually read? Okay. In addition to the above, Caleb has recently reworked how we set up teams in Deathmatch behind the scenes. This will lay the groundwork for some progression tracking, remove several bugs with joining teams, and increase the responsiveness when joining teams. This will become even more important when our max team size increases with the battle groups.
Okay, Andrew, you want to talk about deflection? Because I know you know a bit about that.
Okay. If Brad wants to come talk about deflection, he can too.
Do it.
Since he wrote it.
Do it.
Oh, don't pull him in unexpectedly.
Right on the spot right now.
So this is kind of client side. Like deflection has been in for a while. There's always been a mechanic for how you deflect incoming attacks, but it was
You would just randomly take less damage without knowing why.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, well, that attack did no damage. I don't know why, and hooking that up and giving the client enough knowledge to know that, hey, I'm going to be able to deflect the next attack that comes in, and then, actually play an animation when that next attack is coming in. It's like, I'm going to deflect this, and, I hold my shield up, or I parry with my sword, or various other things like that is, and that's
it. That's what it is.
You can tell, why did I not take damage here?
So,
why did I hit that guy? Why didn't he take damage? And you actually see the deflection showing up on the client in exactly the way that it would on the server. And hey, the gameplay makes sense.
yeah, and a lot of that comes from like our founding principles of being able to communicate world state, what's going on in the battles around you, through your environment and your scene, rather than like having to watch the combat log and see like you deflected half of this attack or whatever. And so we're trying to get you out of the combat log and into the world, because once we scale this up to 200, 400, 600, 2,000 people in a fight, like scrolling combat text just isn't viable.
Yeah, you need to see people actually doing the actions on your screen. Okay. Who wants to take 4?
I'll just follow that up.
Okay.
I mean, as part of hooking all of that up, it was kind of like a little bit of a twisty maze. Like I wrote the original bits of how skills with everything about prediction and all drives animations, and then Brad came in behind that. It was like, I'm having trouble tweaking this, so he added in a bunch of diagnostic type stuff where like it's really easy to visualize what animation is doing what, and that made it much easier for him to implement deflection, but it also gives our animators a lot of insight into what's going on and why. And there's just kind of a little dev UI type thing that's flies out and says, hey, this is what's actually going on with this character. Because it's a super complicated thing of like, I assembled this skill out of this combination of parts, and what animations and particles and everything end up playing off of that. And it's not just like, oh yes, this skill plays this animation, because we haven't even exactly scripted this skill. All the combinations of parts are
right.
broad. So procedurally deciding something, and insight into that process is, after the fact, is useful.
Yeah, like, so to sort of quantify that, right, for like a given class that has, a half dozen or a dozen skill parts that can be combined into these like 4 to 6 node networks, just one class for their skills has like thousands of potential combinations for their skills. And so we're not making animations in VFX for every single possible combination. We're building a system that composes them together and gives smart results that we can tune if something specifically looks bad. And so sometimes there are wacky, not necessarily intuitive outputs from that system. And so Brad has given us a way to sort of see, okay, these were the inputs, this is the output. How do we make this particular scenario look better? Number 5, progression improvements. As we've been testing deathmatch scenarios in Office, Christina has been turning on progression to gather a bunch of cool informations about what's been happening in the game. Not only have we been able to identify who in the Office is totally OP, but we've been able to verify that rewards are properly gifted to the correct people based on their participation in battle. We still need to hook up a UI to better communicate it, but in the meantime, things are working as expected. And so Christina's been really good of like every morning, the day after we do our evening tests and scenarios and stuff, she'll sort of give us a roll-up of either a given scenario or a given window that included multiple.
Actually, I have her notes here to share. Like, she sends around a spreadsheet every day after the tests of just, hey, here's the state of it. And we need UI for it, but say from the Wednesday playtest, in a 40-minute chunk of time, there were 79,800 discrete events that we tracked for progression. And
that's with about, what, like 10 players?
There were 79 deaths, 1,881,917 hit points worth of healing were done.
Probably from Tim.
Yeah. Tim manages to use the stone healer offensively by
everything he does is offensive.
Spawning the healing stones under people to knock them off of things.
Yeah.
That was one interesting thing is like Christina messaged me after one of the tests, and I've mostly been focusing on healers. Part of that is I told these guys like I sort of split my personal playtime between healers and melee, but I'm generally of the opinion that if the healers aren't happy, nobody's happy. So I've been spending a lot of time to sort of get those guys to give input to Ben so that he can get those guys feeling good. So I've been my stone healer doesn't have a single offensive skill on his bar except for a siege skill, because if you guys get to come into the test, you'll realize that if you don't have a siege skill on your bar, you're doing your bar wrong. So I've got one siege skill and a bar full of nope and heals. And Christina was like, Tim, how did you do so much damage last night? And I had just blown the damage charts out of the water, and turns out I'd commit suicide, and right now when you do suicide it does infinite damage to yourself. And so the progression had tracked me as doing insanely high amounts of damage. And so we're tracking all this stuff.
So this was unintentional cheating?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I would never intentionally cheat.
CSE AJ Female had 20 kills on Wednesday, which, yeah.
Scott's slashing skill got to level 3 today. Good job, Scott.
We fixed a bug that, speaking of Tim and his play styles, if you had launched a stone healer rock and then teleported to it, the rock was underground, so then you would be underground. And I heard Tim cackling away, and I look over there, and he's under the ground, under the keep, running around, attacking and doing stuff. And I was like, dude.
I would never do that.
Okay.
So
let's keep going here.
Progression improvements. Drag and drop functionality is next. Many of our UIs are going to need drag and drop, and so right now the use case is the inventory and equipment screen. So AJ started working on drag and drop, and we'll be able to move items from one slot to another in the inventory screen, and then we can use it for other stuff like rearranging your ability bar, which people have been asking for 2 years.
Okay.
So rearranging your skill bar, it's going to be a thing.
Battle groups.
So JB's battle group code is moving forward. It's into the review and testing phase. That's hopefully everyone's read the awesome warband and battle group and everything else document that we've sent around. And once that's in, that's in. So
yeah, and I think there's a little bit more work around integrating it into the scenarios.
Yeah, so once we land that's like a big blocker for having much larger scenarios. Once we land battle groups, there's still a little bit of like glue and fix up that needs to be done to actually get them integrated into battle groups, but it removes a large barrier.
Scenarios.
Yes, sorry, scenarios. It removes a large barrier to moving towards bigger scenarios.
Okay. Performance improvements.
Performance improvements.
Yeah, there's always performance improvements.
The one in particular this week is like when your client tells our server, hey, I want to move over here, or hey, I want to jump, it goes from your client to the user proxies, which sit in between the game server and physics server and your client. And then it tells the game server that you wanted to move and jump, which then tells the physics server that you wanted to move and jump. What we're doing is taking out that second to last step so that it goes...
Legacy of jump basically being a command like an ability, and...
Oh.
Yeah.
Like, kind of like, oh, this is a command, but it's... Hey, yeah, it's not actually an ability, so that was sort of being routed through the command path, and now we'll take that straight out directly to the physics server. Now that the physics servers are their own thing.
So instead of going game client, user proxy, game server, physics server, which is 4 steps, it's going game client, user proxy, physics server, which is 3 steps, which means all of your movement-related stuff is going to be more responsive.
Yeah.
And also take some small load off the game server who is routing traffic it doesn't need to be routing right now.
Yeah, the game server is like allowed to lag slightly because we have complex scripts and all running. So like if the results of the script are a little late, that's no big deal. But movement needs to always be tight.
Yeah.
Okay. Number 9, work in progress. I named this one VFX. Arg, I'm on fire. Basically, Monday morning, Mike and myself were kind of doing a little bit of testing, looking at the VFX he had put in. And I said to Mike, do you hear crackling fire sounds? He was like, yeah, I do too. And I was like, what is going on? Where is that coming from? Basically, we had not hooked up the VFX for the dot effect from the fire effect that had been applied, so we were looking for invisible fire, which kind of sent us down this route of making sure the tech worked to get the VFX, the active effects set up on players so that you could light people on fire. When you're running around your poison, you've got poison effects. When you've got, from the Banshee's Scream Siege ability, you've got a mind effect on your head. So much of this week, Mike has been hooking up new VFX. The good thing is they're kind of smaller, so he can iterate on them fairly quickly, and they're going into all the Blackguard... Man, you give Andrew like 4 seconds of quiet and he gets mischievous. We're setting up the Blackguard abilities so that they have on effects. He's just today going into some of the Siege-specific ones that need an active effect, and then going to be moving into a pass on some of the Winter Shadow stuff.
TLDR, you've been able to set Rob on fire for a long time. Now you can see it.
Now you can see it.
Yeah, and I'm just going to say, like, I mean, Mike's been working on VFX for a long time. Seeing them all together in an epic battle, especially at night with like lights going all over the place, looks good.
Yeah, we've all had it. I mean,
I want to give Mike a shout out that, like, you didn't necessarily see all of these working together, and seeing them all working together, it's like, yeah, that's good. It's working.
Yeah, there's been some really cool shots that I've seen just like approaching the castle, and there's people up there. Our scorpion abilities have a very short cooldown right now, so I was running under someone going, shooting these big flaming arrows over my head, which looked really cool.
Yeah, like Wizard War at night is just, yeah, it's beautiful.
Okay, let's keep going. You want me to just kind of take some of the art ones, or do you guys want to hit any of them?
Go for it.
Okay, so polearms, one of the things...
just be the peanut gallery. We've got your back.
Right, thanks. So one of the things we were seeing with polearms, I mentioned this last week, was a big pop between the traveling animations and the combat animations. So Sandra went through and updated the travel jump and all the associated movement animations so that we don't see that pop anymore. The next one, number 11, we did a shield animations update. Basically, running around with shields worked unless you had a slightly bigger shield, at which point your character was running like this. And I said to Scott, we got to fix that, man. That doesn't look right. And so he went in and he adjusted all the positions of the shields, and especially the Lukerpans got a little bit of love because their heads are so big. They were like this, so they had to have their own unique animations.
I think that's racist.
Moving on, I don't think it's racist. Deflect animations, I'm going to try and go through these quickly since we've already spent a bunch of time. Deflect animations, so since we did get the deflects working and into testing, Scott went through, set the whole hatchery animation sheet up with all the deflects. Brad made a quick fix so that if it doesn't find the appropriate deflect clip, I think we were crashing during the playtest, that won't happen. Additionally, Sandra had completed a couple of deflects for the bows, which hadn't made it into the game, so that was a lengthy process this week, amongst other small tweaks. Number 13, Realm NPC male outfits. So if you've seen any of John's streams over the last 2 weeks, I think 3 weeks, he's done 3 kind of generic male outfits, 1 for each realm. He's done with those for at least, unless Scott needs anything, so the next step is to hand them off to Scott. Scott will then weight them. They need to be handed to Ben so they can get turned into items. They need to then get added to NPCs. So that'll be kind of a slow burn there to get those in, but this frees John up to work on the next set of outfits for the girls. Moving on. Number 14, Arthurian boat model. So Dion has been heads down most this week on the Arthurian boat. I gave you guys a wireframe in last week's update. We'll have a work in progress material version. We've dropped it in the game so we could do a quick audit on it. The next step, Michelle and I gave Dion kind of a 2-pronged list of things to do, some aesthetic, some geometry, and improvements just to kind of add an extra level of love to it. For me, it was kind of make it more realistic, add a lot of little doodads and stuff. One of the things I like about art in games is when you can kind of go, oh, the artist put a lot of love into this. There's a lot of little details. So we do that especially with the rigging and everything like that, the way the ships are put together.
Programmers mostly put hate into things.
Yeah.
You need to...
Yeah, you put hate into things?
Hate and whiskey.
Hate and whiskey. Okay, TDD boat concepts, following up with boats. Michelle completed a pass on a whole bunch of different ideas of TDD boat models. We're going to basically pick which one we like and start building that one out. Environment, number 16. I've specifically said this in a way. When I have time, I go in and I put some new love and new assets in the environment, so I kind of called that a slow burn. This week I got some time to put in some mod updates for the SNS map and start adding in some more materials, and there's kind of a whole list of things I'm going to do a quick art pass with some new assets on this map, and this map will then eventually turn into a design pass of the environment from Ben, and will be a more specific gameplay oriented. My pass is only going to be just so that you're not running around on a flat, lumpy terrain. Yeah?
Go ahead.
Okay. 17 emote icons and work in progress character creation backgrounds. So James earlier this week finished up his list of, God, I don't know how many icons I gave him to do. He survived it. Michelle helped him out with a couple of sketches for the emotes. Those are done, and then he's taken the previously worked on character creation animated backgrounds for the realms for when you're creating your characters, and he's putting those into the patcher and kind of doing a performance pass on it so that nothing gets laggy when you're running the patcher and creating a character at the same time. Number 18, work in progress SFX. So much kudos to DB, who just does a great job not only auditing his own work but finding time to create new things. He's been kind of, typically when I write up what DB's been working on, it's kind of all over the place. So he's been following up with a lot of the work that we've been doing on the siege abilities, the new Blackguard abilities, working on Scorpion sound effects, and DB, much love. It's just great to kind of jump in. He's like, okay, that's not working, let me fix that. That's not working, oh, I need this could be better. So he's kind of a really great, owns the sounds for sure. That wraps it up. That's 18 of them in our top 10-ish.
Hey, Tyler.
Yeah.
Where can we go to actually, see your new terrain textures and stuff? Because I did not know that was in there. I'll go see it.
All the textures that you've been seeing on the hatchery map are all new. So it's just, they've been there.
Okay.
So I've been working on beaches and stuff right now. So if you give me a couple of days of work, you'll get those ones actually on the mod.
Give Tyler a couple of days.
Yeah. So I've made materials. They're not on the mod yet. But all the stuff that's on the hatchery map has been all new stuff that was over the last couple of weeks.
Tyler has the most different jobs of anyone in the company.
Yeah.
By far.
Yeah, I've been trying to do improvements to beach for a while now. So it's just, hey, I got a few more things. I got to put them in.
Questions?
Okay.
All right.
That's our top 10.
18.
Top 18 plus
19 if we count 0.
Yeah, 19, I guess.
So tied for the record.
Actually, I was going to ask you, Andrew, you had put some performance tweaks in earlier. Is there anything interesting you wanted to poke at?
Server runs better when there's lots of players. It's like we're always doing stuff. It's not always things that people care about. It's, like making something perform really well. Sometimes it's like find a bottleneck, fix a bottleneck, times, if you find 100 things that make it run 1% faster, then hey, it's twice as fast.
I mean, if anything, we've become known for that level of attention to detail in a lot of different ways.
So
some of it's just it's dumb stuff like, hey, there's a link query in this inner loop, let's pull that out. And
I hate those.
I also built a database server this week.
Hooray!
Yeah, the poor people in Seattle have clapping in the background. The poor people in Seattle have had to run basically VPN into the master database server outside DC since we opened the office, and that just like the time to start up a server and all was just not awesome because of that round trip. And so yeah, while I was out here this week, I put together a database mirror for them. So yeah, but that's the kind of thing, like, that's not a top 10 thing, that's just the ongoing stuff. That's where but a lot of time goes to ongoing stuff.
And that ongoing stuff in particular, like, will improve the iteration and dev time of all of the guys working in the Seattle office, such that cool shit happens faster.
Yeah, one thing that didn't make it into this is Colin is quietly doing awesome things with NPCs. You can see a little GIF on my Twitter. He's we always say, like, hey, the bots are built to be expensive because they're meant to load test the server, and it's impressive how lightweight he's gotten all the NPCs to the point of, like on his desktop machine, he's running the client and the game server and 500 NPCs in the game server, and sending and recording GIFs out of it. And it's like, well done. So
And then use the sieges too.
yeah, and they do go into sieges. If there's a team that is unbalanced, they will show up in sieges and be dumb but good. Is how I would describe them right now.
Dumb but good.
Yeah.
That's about right.
They're basically really mean, like, homing missiles.
Right.
But I mean, you get hit by 4 homing missiles for 2 minutes and you're dead, or not even 2 minutes.
Yeah,
They'll just blend through somebody.
The joke last week was, "Hey, look how cool those guys are over there killing that
Oh
guy."
God, oh God.
They come after you.
Yeah,
Okay,
so,
we should get to questions.
Should we?
We should. I'm sure people have questions.
All right. So, folks, these are a programmer, the lead programmer, and
Tyler.
and Tyler.
And
A lot of things, but art
Yeah.
guy. So art questions for Tyler and programming questions for our 2 programmers here. No design questions, please. None of these guys are game designers.
There may be a Seattle Peanut Gallery comments from the background. They have threatened.
Rahalden asks.
Or is
What?
she just...
I think we heard that. I don't know if the stream did.
Rahalden asks, can we have a few screenshots of those nightly mages battles?
We're getting close to that.
What was the stuff we were?
Yeah, well, let's hold off on that.
Okay.
To be answered later. Odelvik says that Poxer ponders each avatar's unique physical characteristics will quickly convey his or her realm configuration and class. Will this swift classification also be discernible if you can't actually see but can hear a nearby avatar, casting, chanting, etc.? Will those and other sounds be unique to each realm and class?
Actually, I was going to jump back one sec. I do have a quick sneak peek that we took today. I'm going to see if I can get another better one in tonight's playtest.
That's what I was asking.
Yeah. So we might get I am planning on getting a little sneak peek, a very short sneak peek of kind of what we've been doing up on the forums later today.
Do you want to try and do one daytime and nighttime?
We
We'll
could.
see. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, basically I said, hey, I might need to hijack the beginning of the test and have everybody shoot at me, and Caleb said, we'll do that. Okay, I'm sorry. I derailed that question.
Was,
So-
besides unique shapes and all that, unique sounds.
Basically, like, characters have a silhouette based off of their, like, race and class. Is there the equivalent of a unique audio silhouette?
Do you cast spells in Old Norse versus Old
Well,
Gaelic?
yeah, right now the focus is getting kind of things functional for testing versus making a lot of different tiny minutia. In some regards, DB does have things that are unique to the ability. In other regards, he does not. So some, a lot of this is kind of being honed and put together, and we'll have lots of changes moving forward. So at this time, it's more about getting functionality and play working versus kind of going into all the smaller minutia.
Once we have it working across everything,
Yeah.
then we can look at adding a few signature things.
Right.
I don't think there is time in the schedule to have completely unique sounds for every realm or every class or...
Yeah, I mean, we are going to be going at this...
signature things, though.
Yeah, we want this to be clear to you, however. So if we see things that are like, I can't tell what's going on because all these sounds are very similar and it becomes very important for gameplay and user experience, those will definitely be things we hit. Additionally, DB has a lot of really great ideas and drive to kind of make this really work, and he and I were testing some sounds where he has different sounds depending on how close the arrow actually whizzes by you. So there was an acidic concoction arrow, and as it whizzed by me, you could hear like this snap, crackle, pop of like these acid pops, and then if I was farther away, it was actually a different sound. So he's got already some really cool different sounds in there.
And we've talked about before about sort of our approach to creating the content, both visual and audio, for the world, which is we paint wide swaths
Right.
of something. We need to get in what does it sound like when a hammer hits something before we figure out what does it sound like when a Mjolnir's hammer hits
Exactly.
something before we figure out what it sounds like when a Valkyrie Mjolnir with a hammer hits something. Like
Yeah, well
let's make it so that everybody has sound effects for their hammers before we worry about the audio silhouette, though I think that is the goal.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, well put.
Yeah, but it will be kind of more. I expect just time-wise, unless something, barring anything unforeseen, by the time we launch the game, there will not have been enough time to do completely unique sound sets for everybody.
Oh,
It will
yeah.
come in on the accents, not full sets.
Yeah, and there's also, with these large battles, one of the things we're going to have to look at is like how much memory is all these sounds taking. How do we define what sounds you need to hear and stuff like that? So there's going to be a lot of tech challenges moving forward too.
So that was a long-ass answer to one question.
Well, there's 3 of us, so
yeah.
Adric Ortija asks, will there be a better and easier to use bug reporting tool in place for the start of Beta 1, like being able to
Yes.
report bugs within the game?
Yes.
Okay. Odilvik says, Friendly Fire asks, when island terrain is being designed, will combat and fighting be considered? If not, what is the thought process behind island design?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the first pass is kind of there's 2 sides to this. One is kind of the design perspective. One of it's the art perspective. For the SNS map right now, my limited time goal is to get a few new things in and get some trees and rocks and some basic kind of features that can be used for gameplay. The other version of that is actually building out the terrain for design, the placement of trees and rocks, and that's a much bigger issue. It's a very time-consuming issue. It requires a lot of playtesting and feedback. So that's actually a good question for like when Ben's on the stream, and maybe he and I could do a stream later on when we've got a solid version of the map, and he can kind of talk to the reasoning why we did things in a certain way and how I went.
Yeah.
Oh, and that's pretty.
Like, our procedural terrain system is really cool because Tyler can just sort of make these mod packs of, and this defines a forest, and this defines a beach, and then Ben can work at that and say, and there's a beach here, and it, kind of, the art team can work bottom up, and Ben can work, just on how to make things pretty, and Ben can work top down just on, and, there's a ridge here.
Right,
and
right.
Choke point goes here, bottleneck goes
what's the ridge
there.
look like? Well, Ben doesn't, Ben doesn't know. Ben's not an artist, but he knows there's a ridge there, and sort of the proceduralness will meet in the middle.
Right.
So, I mean, I do want to emphasize Ben is laying out the maps, though. They're laid out from a design view, not a art view.
Lots of people from Seattle are jumping in the chat and answering questions as well.
Dicks.
Sacrix asks.
You can't just like loom over me and yell.
Sacrix asks, how are animations coming?
Sacrix.
Only one animator who couldn't use all his old animations with the new system you created, Andrew. With him now being remote, has there been any luck on hiring more animators for a fluid, visual-heavy game like you wanted?
We have not hired an additional animator yet. Things are happening in Seattle. I'll leave it at that. I don't know if you follow the game industry. Hey, guess what? It's November. Everyone's laid off because it's November in the game industry. So there are a lot of good people coming into the job market right now, and we are talking to some of them.
Yeah, the good thing in the short term is this hasn't impacted us adversely. We've just been moving along, trying to add another layer of... We are basically iterating upon something that will be iterated for a long period of time here. The animations are going to change, the system, the timing, the speed of combat, all of this is going to change. So as I've said before, the point of the animations right now is to get us into combat testing. It's not necessarily to get it right the first time or figure everything out at once. because we want to get a lot of player feedback and let people and have people say, oh, you know, just literally, this feels too fast, this feels too slow, has a direct impact on how fast and how slow our animations are. So right now, all of our, you know, animations are shared amongst everybody. There aren't a lot of specific animations unless we absolutely need to make them for, say, like the Lucre Pans and their shields. So right now, this is more a matter of getting everybody in there so you can use a lot of different weapons and you can swing them and give us feedback on the timings that we've put in. In regards to this current pass, we're just doing a cleanup pass, making sure we've got missing things filled in. And in this case, putting some more love right now on some of the archery abilities. We've got some really great new archery animations that we're playing with. And the scenarios that we're doing kind of let us focus in on a class. So kind of once we get like sieging, you know, the animation's working on the Scorpion and the character firing the Scorpion, character shooting arrows back and forth, then we can move on to the next group of guys depending on where the scenarios take us.
Also, in addition to Scott, we have Sandra, who is a woman of many talents, who has been helping him out with animations as well. So from time to time we have...
Did he say one or two?
I heard one.
Okay. Yeah, so Sandra's animating as well.
So yeah, we have two animators. One of them is doesn't use all of her time for animations.
Yeah. On paper, Sandra's degree is animation, but she, you know, does everything because she's awesome.
Odilvik asks, long term, is the player's choice of shoes going to be purely cosmetic, or will high heels and platform shoes adjust the player's height?
Oh God.
Almost certainly not height, but we have been doing work such that your footsteps are dependent on I think the ground and your boots. No,
not ground. It's been based on the equipment that you have.
Right.
Yeah, we can get ground in there though.
Yeah, we'll get that in there later.
So you know, you get clangier footsteps if you're in plate boots as opposed to, you know, cloth or leather boots. So there is gameplay there.
That's all kind of under that great big, you know, zone regions kind of thing of, hey, right now you're standing in a region of mud. So there's a big thing we'd like to do with environments. That gameplay is always a higher priority.
Poor Max, every time you pause, he's not sure whether or not he should ask the next question.
I think you should just keep going.
Adric Cortesia asks, how long have you already been sprinting for SNS?
5 weeks? Yeah, and like we said, the term sprint we're using very loosely here. It's more like a focused goal.
Yeah. It's not a capital S sprint. It's not a sprint in what you might have read in your book on Agile with a capital A.
Yeah.
It's a straight team.
Uh-oh.
You're talking production stuff.
Yeah,
Walk over.
I can't decide if this is like, you know, the good angel or the bad angel hovering over my shoulder.
The bad. That was a question.
Yomi GW2 has sorted an art question.
Wait, Darth Vader is the good angel?
No, we're both the bad angel.
Talking about Darth Vader. Okay. Yomi has sort of an art question. Is there any plan to allow player crafters to personalize their equipment by way of letting them customize some visual aspect of them, like insignia or pattern, etc., or would doing this only hinder the readability of the various realms?
So
I'm trying to remember what we've talked about.
Don't really plan things that will change the silhouette, but in terms of decaling or painting, dyeing, tinting, snapping a sigil across your pauldrons, yes. But changing the silhouette of the pauldrons is probably beyond what makes sense to allow.
Capicola wants to know, does anyone actually do Agile with a capital A?
Is Darth Vader still there?
So, I'm actually just typing an answer to this question. Most game studios I've worked at or talked to, they all do this concept of Agile Butt, which is everyone kind of takes the tools from the Agile toolbox and picks and chooses what they like. Stand-up sprints, post-it note boards, whatever. There's a bunch of stuff that kind of falls under the Agile tenets.
Yeah, and lots of sprints and lots of stand-ups are important to keeping your butt agile, so, you know.
Exactly.
Capicola says, that's not a question, and I'm his wife. I don't know to whom that might refer.
I believe that Capicola is in fact my wife, and she is saying that she was asking this rhetorically because she knows the answer is no, because she is also a producer. Dear God, we can never be on the same project, though.
Why not, Andrew?
No. No, don't take that bait.
Who knows the game Overcooked?
Oh, I love that game.
Yeah,
Okay, let's go to the next question.
Well, we're actually running out.
Party game, up to 4-player couch co-op, where you're trying to, you're trying to like make hamburgers, and one person only has access to the grill, and the other person only has access to the bun, and there's rats running around that try to steal the food, and it's just how many balls in the air can you juggle? So we tried to play this game together, and we just end up screaming at each other as we both try and manage the other one's task queue. Don't go there.
So we did that with Lovers in a Dangerous Space Time. Like, I was barred from driving, and I could only control the guns, and fights broke out if I tried to drive the actual vehicle. It's just like real life.
And it's like, no, go there. No, you go there. I'm going there. Don't touch it.
Yep. Can confirm my wife's a project manager for engineering projects, and same thing happened.
Yeah, I've had same thing with Overcooked, but with my 6-year-old daughter. If you ever want to see a 6-year-old make a grown woman leave the room, play Overcooked.
Leveline asks, so will we avoid the speed hacks and all the rest we all hate with other games?
Yes.
Andrew can jump on this.
Because again, all motion is on the server. The servers, the client lets you move within reason where you want to, but the server is always just kind of saying, la la la, I'm the real player that lives here on the server. I'm going to run towards where the client says I am at whatever speed the client, and the client, maybe you speed hacked the client and he ran over here. The server is just going to say, yep, I'm trying to catch up to that, and this is the guy that everyone actually sees, and this is the guy this is the position that's relevant for when you get hit. So all you can really accomplish by speed hacking in your client is to see yourself in a different position from where the server thinks you are, and so people can just go beating on the real you, and that speed hack didn't help you much at all, did you?
Yeah, so we can't say we're unhackable. We're never going to claim that. Anybody who sells you an unhackable product is really good with snake oil. There is a whole category of common video game hacks and exploits that, because of the way we've done physics on our server, we are immune to. There are other things that I'm sure very clever people will find out, and we will tackle them as we come to them. But this category of stuff that we see on a lot of MMOs, speed hacking, teleportation, that kind of thing, just the way we handle physics on the server just is immune to those.
Yeah, I would say in general, the level of don't trust the client is higher here than most games that are out there. We just assume that the client is sending whatever combination of bits will ruin the game the most, and treat them as lies.
Sacrix asks, do you plan to have to go back to look at tech every time you add something on the front end which could cause lag?
Over everyone laughing.
Okay, everyone's laughing at Sacrix. Got it.
I love you. Thank you for doing your best to keep us honest about things.
Sacrix asks, do you plan to have to go back to look at tech every time you add something on the front end which could cause lag?
I'm not sure I understand the question. Every time you add something that could cause lag, you need to make sure it doesn't cause lag. That's part of making a good game.
There is, so to talk to that a little bit, there is a certain category of things that a developer just, working on a server or a client on their own machine has difficulty gauging how it will work at scale with 2,000 people in an epic battle. to that effect, we're slowly improving our tools. Stuff like the NPCs that Colin has been working on allow a developer to throw 500 guys on his computer, and so we're becoming more and more empowered to not just look at does this work with 1 or 2 or 3 guys, but does it work with 500 or 800 or 1,000 or 2,000 guys. Those tools are improving and getting better every day. But there's absolutely, there's this implicit and does it run well that goes with just about every task we do.
Yeah, I mean, that literally goes all the way to the art too. Oh god, I made some new things, let's put it in. Does my frame rate drop prohibitively? I mean, that's good game development.
Another question from Sacrex, and I'm going to read it as written. Maybe you guys will understand it. Sacrex asks, you said you cut out of part of client to server. What was the reason for that? You said more fluid and reactive. Was there any other reasons for this, and has anything been lost?
Okay, so this was about what Colin changed
Right.
On the physics server. So there are there's the client, and there are 3 server processes. There is the client, there is the proxy server, which is what talks directly to you, and those we scale horizontally. Like every time more players come into the game, we start another proxy server to accommodate each batch of them. Those are the frontline things that talk directly to you. Then there are several other servers. There's the group server, there's the presence server that just tracks, what parts of what player are on what server. There are game servers that just sort of resolve gameplay rules about, how much damage did this skill do, and then there are physics servers that are, just moving things in the world, and that's pulled out as a very, very special thing because we want to make sure that, above all, movement has to stay fluid, so anything that causes lag on anything else won't ever affect just moving the physics world forwards. So Colin's change was the physics server was always running its simulation, and it's really, really tightly contained time steps, and it was forwarding the results of that simulation directly to the proxy to send out to the world. But player movement was being routed from the proxy to the game server and to the physics server, and that's legacy from before we split out the physics server. So the change is that incoming player movement goes directly from the proxy server to the physics server, bypassing the game server. So that's it's a routing thing on the back end. Yep. It makes, but it ensures that anytime there's like lag with processing skills or a complicated script goes off or something like that, that it's further isolating your movement from being affected by that.
Another way to look at it is basically all of our users, all of our backers, all of our players, you guys all talk to the proxy servers for most everything you do. There is a triangle of servers, which is the user proxy, the physics server, and the game server, and they can all talk to each other. Right now, prior to this change, the user proxy would ask the game server to talk to the physics server about physics things. Now, instead of doing that, the proxy server just talks directly to the physics server on your behalf. So we haven't removed anything except an extra step in how data makes it to the physics server.
Yeah, and basically that's, originally the physics server and the game server were one and the same, and we decided we wanted to pull it out, and this is just sort of the last mile of making it fully independent.
So there's just one less step in the game of telephone.
So does that make sense? Hopefully.
Sacrex said that was a good answer. So
yeah, and one person said it was a little confusing or didn't understand it, and what Tim said is kind of the simplified version of it. There's less people in line that the conversation needs to go through.
Andrew's doing something crazy with a whiteboard. I was going to give a 5-minute warning.
No.
Flowchart's about to happen, bitches.
But I think Andrew's going to lay some knowledge down on you. I don't know how well we can see
I don't know if they're going to be able to see this, Andrew.
I guess they can. Draw big.
Just use a Sharpie, it'll be fine.
No.
This is how it always goes.
Insider knowledge, that happened once.
We just see black dots, really.
Proxy server for the players, and every time we get more players, we start more proxy servers, and that's part of how we scale out. And
Can they see this?
yay, Amazon, Google Cloud.
Yeah, we can see this. I don't think the stream can.
There, that's kind of. You have to stay above this line.
Top rate production. Ugh. Okay.
So now that we all know how servers work,
Yeah.
Oh my god, it's time travel.
Okay.
so Chad has been trying to help.
I can make you
so-
understand this. I just am way too small to communicate clearly.
That's pretty adorable. 5-minute warning, I think. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
sure.
We're gonna keep this. Unfortunately,
Chad,
this will keep going.
Chad has been trying to help Odovic phrase this question the right way, so we're going to see if we can do this.
Crowdsourcing,
All right.
asking questions. I like it.
So, I think Odovic is asking about, from a technical perspective, if Tyler has the ability to apply a gameplay setting to terrain. So, so does Tyler have the ability to apply gameplay adjusting cosmetics, leading on from procedural generation to the generated landmass, such as applying X number of choke points of Y length and Z width automatically?
There is no like input value of something like that. Like make this very specific thing.
It's kind of going in the opposite direction of Ben says, I want a choke point here, and then the procedural stuff goes, all right, well, how will we make that choke point look pretty without Ben having to be an artist?
Right. Yeah.
But where is a choke point and how many choke points in it? That's something that we are handcrafting.
And mostly unrelated to that, but in the original incarnation of the procedural terrain stuff, it was just about the visuals and the terrain and collision and stuff like that. More recently, we've been working on empowering the procedural terrain stuff to do more gameplay relevant logic in terms of like putting down trees that you can cut down or resource nodes that you can harvest and stuff like that. That's an ongoing effort that we're working on some really cool stuff with right now.
Talking about the ECT stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But this is like why we went down this path. Like, one of my key benchmarks for how our entire asset pipeline and the way we build this game needs to work was, I just remember in Warhammer Online, there was this time when we're like, I think this keep would work a lot better if there was a second ramp around the east side. And it took 6 weeks to get that from someone saying that to having players able to play that, because someone had to say that as a designer, and then an artist had to make it, and then another artist had to paint it, and then big lighting fake pass, and my goal was that one question, that one thing. Hey, I think this keep might work better if there was a ramp around the east side. Like, if we can go from that to, and now players on a test server have a ramp on the east side, like in less than an hour, then that's that one thing is at the key of a lot of the decisions that we have in our tech stack. So, should there be another ramp around the east side is very much a gameplay decision, and we don't necessarily want to just fully automate throwing down ramps wherever and choke points wherever. Like, that's the gameplay. We want to handcraft it, but we want to not make art a bottleneck in terms of getting that into testing. We want to be agile. We want to, with a small a.
With a small a, yeah. Yeah, I mean, if you look at, I think one of the YouTube or Twitch videos, I believe it was like demo. You could look up demo and probably Tyler, or demo and environment. I do a little bit of like, so this is how this works, and I can add this in and move stuff around, and it all artistically updates, if that's the best way to put it, versus design. So, you know, look at that video or something. It kind of gives you an idea of like, oh, how easy it would be to add a ramp to the backside of the keep.
Well, since it brought in all three of you, that wasn't too bad of a question to end on. But real quick, Odilvik asks, which office, east or west, is best?
Hold on, I gotta mute the laptop real quick.
We have colored lights here.
Yeah, Andrew, which office is best?
Whichever one I'm presently in.
Yeah, good answer.
Don't forget about San
Roughly
Jose.
two-thirds East Coast.
Oh yeah, I'm putting in a vote for CSE San Jose.
Oh.
What's CSC San Jose?
Mark?
Oh, Hernandez?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
All right,
Is it really
folks.
San Jose, or is it more Santa Cruz?
Yeah, he's more Santa Cruz.
All right, folks. Well, thank you all for joining us. Keep an eye out for tonight's updates.
We'll have an update.
We'll have the top 10-ish list that we just read aloud to you, probably with 19 items, and or maybe just 18.
Well, it was
just
continued
18.
fun.
And
look for some of the pictures that look for some pictures of the art things we talked about, and Tyler says he's gonna take some screenshots.
Yeah, I want to get over and get the test going so everybody can shoot me and I can get you guys a little sneak peek.
Yeah, I want you to be shot.
all right, everyone, get ready to wave. See you later.